Good morning. See if I get the right ones. Here we go. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, October 10th. This is the Legislative and Human Resource Committee meeting. First item on our agenda is public comment. If you are here for public comment, you have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address.
How you doing, everybody? My name is D. Jones. I stay at 967 Tamarack Avenue. And first of all, I would like to say that I'm just very thankful to be alive. I'm a very energetic person, and I feel gorgeous. I really do feel gorgeous. Like, a lot of people really do ask me, like, how do you feel? And I say I feel gorgeous, and I really feel beautiful inside. I really feel like really, really good. Like, it's crazy. But I just hope that everybody has that same energy and passion when they wake up to feel enthusiastic and feel good, regardless of the things that's going on in life. But I'm actually going to be giving a presentation at Grand Valley State University on esports and how it addresses climate change and how you can use games like Fortnite to educate people. And I've been able to connect with big banks like Fifth Third Bank, and they're interested in building an esports world within Fortnite and educating people in the financial system. I look really forward to educating Grand Valley State University because it's a nice university. It's a very prestigious, nice university. I put together a presentation, and I really can't wait to educate the community and college professors and politicians. I really been educating people and speaking about esports and getting esports to Kent County. I even see that we have the circuit court here, and I'm actually putting an esports league together for kids on surveillance and probation to try to get them to do something positive. And I don't know the outcomes and how that will go, but I know it's going to be cool. I have a partnership with the NBA, and they gave me 6 copies of NBA 2K on the next gen Xbox. So I've been able to get some pretty cool things donated to me from the hard work that I've been doing. I even got recognized by Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg has an esports team, and I'm a big cannabis guy for sure. But I got recognized by Snoop Dogg for the work that I've been doing around the community. And so I'm just really forward to educating Grand Valley State University and the community on esports and how you can use this as a tool to address social issues, because I don't just do esports competitions. It's not just gaming, but it's a way to build culture. It's a way to break barriers, and I've done that with my esports competition with the help of Kent County government, the help of the Kent County Sheriff's Department. I really want to thank the Sheriff's Department for allowing some of the sheriffs to come out to the community and support the initiatives that I've been able to do and have those conversations, because it takes people to be bold and to have the courage to go out there and try to break barriers and be the change that you want to see. I really want to see change. I know I'm going to see change, and change is happening. And I really look forward to working with Kent District Libraries on the esports league, just esports infrastructure, and just having it all across Kent County. Like, I look forward and being an example across the United States. There's not a lot of library districts that's doing what we're doing. It's truly unique. And actually, when I leave here, I actually got to speak to Germany too. I got a global business event I got to sit on. So I look forward to today. Thank you.
Thank you, D. Jones. Is there anyone else that would like to address us in public comment? If so, please state your name and address.
Good morning. Rodney Harrison, 11881 Fruit Ridge Avenue, Kent City, Michigan. I was here 2 Thursdays ago, and I spoke about corruption in the county and 63rd District Court, the Sheriff's Department, and other issues. And I had the pleasure to meet with Al Vandenberg the very next day, the Friday at 4 o'clock. And we didn't get much addressed. I told him the Reader's Digest version of what I had going on. That brought me here, and we didn't get very far. And Al and I still don't agree or see eye to eye. I talked to him this morning briefly before the meeting. I spent some time on the county website, and this committee, the Legislative and Resource Committee, duties include bullet point number 2, examining matters of public safety and law enforcement. That's what this is all about. All of you are elected public officials. I am hopefully going to gain some ground with a gentleman, Mr. Dan Burrow, if I pronounce your name correctly, and also Miss Lindsay Thiel, and for being the chair and vice chair. I would like to address also the fact sheet of the Michigan Municipal League misconduct by public officials ethics. And it's malfeasance, misfeasance, and non-feasance. And I don't care if you want to work with me or not. I will get every one of you for not doing your job, okay? I would like to speak with somebody who's going to listen to me and help me. And if you help me, great. If you don't help me, I get it. You're part of the get-along gang. I'm not happy. I don't like getting jerked around. When I talked with Al last Friday, I got here at 10 to 4. He came in the conference room 5 or 10 minutes after 4, and then Megan knocked on the door at about 25 to 5. Oh, Al, don't forget about your conference call. I don't know if Al had a conference call or not, or if that was his exit plan, because I am very vocal on sending email from all the way from here to the Attorney General's office. I'm not going away. This is going to be resolved. It starts with my son being mentally and physically assaulted in Sparta area schools at 8 years old and covered up. Honorable Judge Julie Joseph Rossi, I got a letter from him probably a month ago. Go to hell, Rod. I'm not doing a one-man grand jury. Well, I'm here to tell everybody, go to hell. He's going to do a one-man grand jury to resolve all this with the help of you or without the help. I don't care. I was told by Aubrey Sargent, the department chief of the Criminal Investigation Division of the Attorney General's office, Rod, take this back to Kent County. That's exactly what I've done. I've done it in the court system, and I'm doing it here again today, and I'm not going away.
Thank you for your addressing the committee. I
I
appreciate
look
it.
forward to talking to you, Dan. I'll be calling you.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to address the LHR committee? Seeing no one, we will close the public comment of our meeting. Approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion and support to approve last meeting's minutes? Motion by Teal, supported by DeBoer. Any comments, questions? Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. Along the way this year, the minutes of our committee meeting minutes used to reflect a lot of the discussion that we had on any of the issues, the questions, the answers. And they're now, over recent months, have become reduced to really putting our agenda in sentence form, as far as I can see. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but it's our agenda in sentence form. And so I'd like to know, at what level this administrative or policy level was made, and if there's a way to get this back to the way it used to be, which was really much more informative to both the public and, if I'm watching if I'm reading the finance committee meetings, I have a sense of what they've already asked and what the responses were. It's just as informative all the way around.
Yes, let's, can we leave this for miscellaneous?
Well, we're talking about a motion right now. That's fine. We can leave it till miscellaneous. That's fine, but it does pertain to the motion at hand.
All right, well, I was just thinking approval of last meeting's minutes, we would kind of get that, we got a motion and support, and if Al just wants to take a quick second to answer that, great, but otherwise. I would say
No, sure.
miscellaneous.
I think we can do the minutes any way the chair wants us to. We did discuss this with Chair Steck. Basically, there's a lot of commissioners, there's a lot of comment. You would never do a transcript and do it verbatim, so whenever you include comment, you're leaving comment out. And I think also the thinking was, since all of our meetings are videoed, if there's a question, we can easily go back to that and check. So I think that it's certainly, I think it's difficult in that we're always going to leave somebody out unless we do a complete transcript of the meeting. And so we did decide to do more of what's legally required instead of add to what's legally required. We can certainly do it differently, though.
Okay. I guess if we're going to have some discussion here, maybe we can have some discussion with a few of us or at miscellaneous regarding this as well and try to get a consensus, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on approval of last meeting's minutes? If not, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. last meeting's minutes have been approved. So we have items 3 and 4 on our agenda. I understand that there's a kind of a program, you're going to have them on the same program? Are you going to go from one to the other, correct? Yep. All right, perfect. All right, so the first item on performance measurement review is the 17th Circuit Court. Andrew, Circuit Court Administrator. Then after that, friend of the court, number 4, will be Tracy. And again, they'll go from one to the other, from what I'm told.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Andy Thalhammer, Circuit Court Administrator. Thank you for having us. I bring greetings from our judges across the street who are probably in hearings as we speak. So anyways, moving through the PowerPoint, just a brief overview. We're going to stick to kind of the strategic plan and policies of the county and how we do things and some strategic alignment. I'll get right to our metrics and goals. I know that there might be some questions regarding this. Typically, I do kind of time to guidelines, meaning how quickly things are passed. That's one of the things we're measured on by the state. The other thing is clearance rates, to making sure that we're keeping up with our cases. Ideally, that clearance rate would be out of 100%, meaning if we get 100 cases in that year, we'll also get rid of 100 cases. Not the same 100 cases, obviously, because it takes time to do it. But it's just kind of an overall way to make sure we're keeping up with the work that is coming to us. We are increasing in our filings since the low of 2020. We're up about 25% from that year. But that's kind of a leveling off of where we were before 2020. We had about 15,000 filings in 2022, about a little over 12,000 in 2020. So criminal clearance rates, the 124%, kind of seems confusing to many when you see it. How can you be over 100%? And I've got another slide later that demonstrates our backlog and the efforts we've made and progress we've made in getting rid of that, especially in criminal clearance rates. It also affected civil. During the pandemic in 2020, we were unable to have trials. And we do have some civil trials as well, but obviously it put a real block in clearing a lot of criminal cases. And I've got a slide and a few slides here to demonstrate that. Again, this is kind of the nature of, even though our cases are going up, because we were backlogged in some cases, our clearance rates are also going up. I chose criminal, civil, and then divorce, delinquency, and child protective. Those are pretty much our biggest filings and probably that affect the most people, with the exception of personal protection orders. I think we're going to be at about 3,000 personal protection orders this year, which is way higher than it's ever been. But our divorce and delinquency clearance rates, as you can see, are about where they should be. We're pretty comfortable if it's a little under, a little over 100%. Child protective is 83%, which is down a little lower than we'd like to see it. That is a function of, in 2022, we actually had kind of a bump in those cases. Whether it's good or bad, child protective cases went down a lot during COVID. We kind of attribute that to the fact that there were a lot less eyes seeing kids and reporting abuse and neglect. Schools were closed. I mean, people were just home. In 2021, they started going up again. 2022, we had a pretty big bump. We had about a 10 or 15% increase from the previous year, which I think explains why we're only at 83% in the clearance rate. And we expect that to be probably closer to 100 or maybe a little more, because we're back down a little bit from where we've been. This is the chart. Apologize for the smallness of some of the numbers, but this demonstrates our backlog. And what we consider backlog is if a case is pending, but it's already passed the time guidelines that SCAO recommends, which is 301 days. So these are for felony cases. And you can see that the peak in our case, even I can't read it, but we were very high at January of 2021. And you can see that we have leveled off significantly from that. We're still higher than where we'd like to be. I think we're at about 80, 85 cases right now that are pending past guidelines. Typically, we were at about 15 to 20 before the pandemic. But as you know, we keep getting cases in. Our criminal cases, our felony cases have actually ticked up a little bit in total. So it's going to take a little more time to do that. Interestingly, Before the pandemic, in 2019, we conducted 67 criminal trials. And in 2022, we conducted 73 criminal trials. We only did 6 more trials, but as you can see, the progress we made in the backlog. So it just kind of goes to show that the ability to have the trial was actually more important probably than the trial itself, just knowing that, that the possibility was going to happen. So some significant accomplishments of the court before I turn it over to Tracy, and then I'll be back for some challenges later. Our treatment and support court, the mental health court, received certification this year. And there are about a little over 60 factors that they come in to, I guess, judge us on and make sure that we're meeting expectations. So it's kind of a big deal that it gets that certification. We're now to the point where when other counties want to start a mental health court, they're coming to visit us to see how to do it. It's been a huge success for us. We're seeing very good numbers with recidivism. The homelessness is being reduced for the folks that are participants. Employment is going up for our participants. It's just been a very good success for us. Jury payment. For a while, well, as long as I've been here, typically jurors had to wait for a check to come in the mail. Kind of an antiquated process. We've gotten rid of that finally. So now when jurors leave, they're actually given a card when they leave. Once transfers are made, they'll get a text or a phone call to say, hey, you can activate the card, and whatever your payment you earned for your jury duty goes onto that card. You can request a check if you want. You can go in and cash the card if you want, or you can do gift cards. It's kind of your choice as to how to do it. But usually now we're within the week or within a few days that jurors are being paid rather than waiting for that check to come out. I always like to mention our juvenile probation recidivism rates. We have a little under 10% recidivism rate, which I would put up against most counties in the state for how well we do with the youth that are on formal probation. We divert a lot of kids that come to our attention with petitions. We don't necessarily bring them all and make them formal cases and put them on probation. The ones we do, our community probation program, we have limited caseloads. We have strict criteria for how often they're going to see the kids. We go see them in their homes, in the schools, and it's been an effective program for as long as we've had it. And detention staffing. Detention has been, it's been rough since during the pandemic and since the pandemic. We, at our peak, I think we were at 28 vacancies for youth specialists. These are kind of the frontline workers in detention. And as a result, we've had many priority releases in 2021. I think we had 66 priority releases, and this is where we have a youth in detention that has to go in order for us to meet licensing guidelines. We don't have enough staff to keep the youth in the facility safe when that happens. This year, to date, we've only had 19 priority releases. We've got 13 openings right now. The peak was at 28 openings, as I said before. So I believe Amy's here with the help of HR and recruiting efforts, with efforts that we're making out at detention. And I think hopefully the economy turning a little bit, but all the factors have probably played a part. But we've been very pleased that we've been able to get such a turnaround in detention staffing for that. So, yeah, Tracy.
Good morning. Thank you for the time and attention today. I appreciate it. I bring with me greetings from the front of the court, the entire team there. A couple representatives. I've got Mike Prendergast and Manny Colon with me today, representing our office as well. And I want to talk about, of course, some performance measures with you today, but I also want to structure it a little bit around the framework of the statute that creates the front of the court and share with you a little bit about what some of those statutory duties are that we have and how performing those duties in the community impacts the families that we serve. So I've got a lot of stats to share with you today, but I do want to put that into some context as well as far as what that means for children and families in Kent County. One of the statutory duties that Friend of the Court has is to perform custody and parenting time investigations. How this typically works is a family where custody is in contention, whether it's a new case filing with the circuit court, or it's a post-judgment motion filing where someone is seeking to modify custody or parenting time, those folks go to court on a motion hearing. And typically, it's at that motion hearing that the court, the judges, the referees will order those cases to the front of the court to perform those custody and parenting time investigations. That allows our staff, we've got 8 dedicated staff members to this particular function, it allows them to speak with parents, speak with collateral resources, other professionals, mental health professionals, education professionals, other individuals that are involved in the children's lives, also review documents, whether it's police reports, Children's Protective Services reports, school records, et cetera, and then ultimately put together a report and recommendation that is sent to the parents, attorneys if they have them, and the court to really act as the eyes and the ears of the court to help the court determine what is in the best interest of the children in that particular case. And in 2022, we performed 615 of these custody and parenting time investigations, and I'm happy to report that 96% of those were completed within 90 days. What that translates to for families is families didn't have to wait long to work toward a resolution. So now they have input, now attorneys have input, the court has input that can help move that case into resolution, whether it's through mediation and the parties agreeing, through settlement conferences at the court, or ultimately perhaps in litigating that particular case. Also, in connection to that, not all parents want to go to court. Not all parents want to file a motion. It's expensive. It's time-consuming. It's stressful for families. One of the other statutory duties that Friend of the Court has is to perform and provide mediation services. Mediation services for parents to come together with one of our 8 mediator evaluators on staff, talk about the changes they might want to make to their custody or parenting time order, and then have that order by our office drafted. We facilitate that by having that then sent to the judge for signature, and then we handle the getting it back, the proof of service, sending it out to the parents, all of those difficult components of the legal process that can be very difficult for parents to navigate. Now, mediations currently are held virtually via Zoom. This provides greater access to parents, and there's a QR code on this slide because we have an online sign-up. So parents can, either through a link, through a QR code, or if those aren't accessible or workable for them, they can call our office and we will schedule them for one of those mediations. Typically, parents can get in within 2 weeks. So that means within 2 weeks' time, they may have a new custody or parenting time order. So for instance, the Thanksgiving holiday is coming up. Parents don't know what's supposed to happen because their current order doesn't detail what's supposed to happen over the Thanksgiving holiday. They could sign up for mediation today, meet with one of our mediators next week. By the end of next week, have a new order, assuming that they agree on what's going to happen with that Thanksgiving holiday, and then they'll be all set for the holiday season. And I'm also happy to report, in part because of the online sign-up, that 100% of these mediations are scheduled within 90 days. But as I just said, most of them are scheduled and held within 2 weeks. We also have, in connection to litigation, potentially, we have a statutory duty to perform child support reviews. These can happen in a number of different instances. So this is when there is a child support order in place, but for some reason, maybe that child support order is no longer reflective of the current circumstances of the family. Sometimes parents might file a motion and ask for the court to review. If they do, most of the time, the court refers those cases to us to do that investigation on what the child support order should be. In some instances, Friend of the Court, in our office, we can initiate these child support reviews if parents can meet that legal threshold that they need to meet and provide us information that demonstrates as such. We can initiate those reviews, saving them, again, the time and expense of filing that motion. And under statute, every family is entitled to a child support review every 36 months. So we do those child support reviews as well. So there's a lot of child support reviews that cycle through our office. In 2022, we did over 2,200 of those. And the statutory requirement for us to complete those is 180 days. Last year, for 2022, we completed 91.76% within 90 days and 100% within the 180 days. Again, an example of helping parents move toward resolution more quickly and helping ensure that the child support order, that both parents have a financial responsibility. The child is entitled to financial support from both parents, but we can help through these reviews ensure that that child support amount is appropriate under the current guidelines and child support formula in the state of Michigan. But it's not always the case that folks pay their child support. And there can be a number of different reasons for that. One of the statutory duties we have is to collect and enforce on child support orders, they're court orders, and the expectation is that they are followed. Now, one of the more significant consequences of a parent not following a court order for child support is a bench warrant, but that's an extreme measure. We do enforce our orders beginning at the 60-day mark. So we monitor a case. Once someone is behind, a parent hasn't paid the court-ordered support within 60 days, that triggers that enforcement process. Mike Prendergast, who is here with me today, is representing our enforcement department, and Mike will tell you that a bench warrant or a court hearing is by far not the first thing that happens in that enforcement process. In fact, there are a series of letters, emails, telephone calls to reach out to parents to say, hey, look, we realize that we haven't received any payments from you. Contact us, let us know what's going on. Are you not able to work? Well, maybe we need a medical statement from a healthcare provider. Are you looking for work? All right, let us know. Demonstrate to us that you're exercising due diligence, looking for work, so we don't have to proceed further with the enforcement. Are you having problems paying your child support? Here are some of the options that are available to you. And sometimes, not every parent is in contact with us, and we do have to schedule that order to show cause, which is a contempt proceeding with the court. Parents are notified via email and mail that that order to show cause is happening, again with an invitation to say, contact us, we want to resolve this. Let's figure out what's going on and how we can get you back on track. And if that doesn't work, then we have the order to show cause, our staff is there, parents are there, we interview and talk with parents before the court hearing, before we go in front of the judge, to again, try to resolve the issue, figure out what we can do to get parents back on track. And maybe that doesn't work. Most of the time it does. But there are a handful of cases each week that will go in front of the judge, and the judge will make a ruling on those particular cases. Folks who did not show up for their court hearings may be issued a bench warrant. Folks that do go in front of the judge might order, hey, look, you haven't been paying your child support. I find you have an ability to pay your child support. So you are ordered to pay $500 by next Friday, and if you don't, a bench warrant may issue or shall issue, depending on the ruling. So that's the pathways that we get to the bench warrants. What's really great about the deputy program that we have is that post-court, post-bench warrant, we have dedicated Kent County Sheriff Department deputies that can make contact with parents and resolve these warrants so that parents aren't picked up and lodged on these warrants. That's the goal. And in 2022, 99.4% of those warrants were resolved without arrest. So deputies were able to go out into the community, connect with parents, make payment arrangements, get them back on track. While they're there, inform them of other options and other friend of the court services that might be available and helpful to them, and then resolve those warrants and get those warrants dismissed. But all of this would be very difficult if we weren't able to be accessible and communicative with parents. We've got a lot of different methods and modalities, whether it's text message, two-way message, email, but by far the most effective way and the most frequent way that parents communicate with our office is by calling. I've got Manny Colon here today, who's actually representing our Client Information Services Department that in 2022 took over 60,000 calls from parents. See, over 60,000 calls from parents this team did. And even with staffing challenges that we faced in 2022, most of that year, Manny might nod his head at this, we were short-staffed in CISD, but still 75% of those calls were answered meaning people were not on hold for more than 5 minutes. I don't know about you, but I've called a number of different customer service places over the past years. My experience generally isn't having my phone picked up in less than 5 minutes, but 75% of those 60,000 calls were. And to add to that, 79% of those calls were resolved on that first contact with the individual that answered the phone, an individual like Manny. So they weren't transferred to a voicemail, waiting for a call back, and then stuck in that loop of phone tag that sometimes happens. They were resolved, 79% of them, on that first contact. Some significant accomplishments in 2022, we were able to relaunch our Resources for Parents program. This is a program for parents that pay support, as well as parents who receive support, to get support as parents. Included some of the feedback from parents on this slide. In the interest of time, I can't read those all to you, but parents are happy that they are listened to, connected with resources, and they feel that the program has very much helped them. We also have another program where parents can sign up for an online phone appointment, a QR code. Again, parents feel heard, they feel listened to, they feel assisted, and they're able to get individualized help with a number of different areas. And another brief thing to mention in connection with 2022 is we were able to relaunch our community outreach. We did 21 community outreaches in 2022 and were warmly received by the parents in the community that we interacted with. We certainly have some challenges coming down our way. We have some unknowns with regard to some of our funding sources, particularly those medical incentives, as well as some state-level systems changes that are headed our way as well. So those are uncertain, causing us a little bit of anxiety, but those are things on our radar for sure. And I'll turn it back over to Andy for any circuit court challenges that he might want to address.
Thanks. So, some things on the horizon, or I guess that we're experiencing right now, that we would consider challenges. Again, I'm going to go back to detention. This is a repeat from last year, lack of suitable placement options for youth in the juvenile justice system. I did some research. Basically, every couple of weeks, I get an email from our census control officer in detention saying that these are the list of youth in detention awaiting placement. A couple of years ago, that number, if you counted them up, there'd be about 10. The average for this year is 31. So that is youth we are waiting for a placement bed to open up, and there just have been fewer and fewer. I'm told there's a task force in Lansing to address this issue, but I think that began a little over a year ago, and I don't know how much progress has been made with it. But again, it just kind of compounds the issue of detention overcrowding or not having enough staff when you have 31 kids that probably could or should be somewhere else, but instead they're sitting in detention. Uncertainty with case management system. Our current case management system, CourtView, what we have, there is a web-based version of it, which is probably the logical next step to go to. However, we are hearing in Lansing that we might be required to use a system called JIS, which, if that is the case, again, we believe it would be a step backwards in case management systems for us, but we may be told to do that. We're kind of waiting for, I guess we're in a holding pattern waiting for that decision to be made. Juvenile justice reform legislation, I call this a challenge. It's basically just kind of a change that's coming. There's a lot of bills moving in Lansing right now to reform juvenile justice in the state. A lot of them I think are very good. And I would say that because a lot of the things that they're going to be requiring us to do, we're already doing. Risk assessment tools, diverting cases when possible, putting some age restrictions on. But one of the things they're going to, I guess, try to get rid of is any collections for these cases other than restitution. Currently, there are court costs. There are, we do request some money back if we're putting kids in placement. Some of the costs that we incur does sometimes go back to the family based on their ability to pay. That will be getting rid of. The other side of that is usually diversion efforts that we pay for right now are completely funded by the county. The Child Care Fund is going to start reimbursing for those diversion efforts as well. So when you're looking at total costs, it's probably going to be a wash, maybe even a little in our favor, just because, like I said, based on ability to pay, we don't typically collect as much from some families that are in the situations that sometimes they find themselves, especially the amount of money that residential treatment costs. And then finally, juvenile justice set-aside legislation. You might have heard about some set-aside legislation in the adult system where basically certain offenses are just to be automatically expunged or wiped clean from the record, the clean slate, I think they called it. I know the clerk's office, a lot of that has fallen to them where they're working hard with IT to get some solutions done properly so that they can start telling people criminal histories again, because I believe the legislation states that if they were to release something that they shouldn't, that has been expunged, they could actually be charged with a crime. That's kind of been, the clerk's office has been saddled with that. However, the juvenile set-aside legislation is coming, which is kind of more of our deal. We had a little bit of a head start on it because it's taken longer for it to be implemented. And we should be fine, but it's just a lot of extra manual work for some of our staff and case management to make sure that basically the records are proper based on this new legislation.
Well, thank you again for your time and attention, and if time allows, certainly we would welcome and invite any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioner Bujak.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned placement. You said that you had all these cases and you were having a difficulty placing these juveniles, but you didn't make it very clear where they were being placed. What is placement? Where do you put them?
Sorry, residential treatment is what we would call it. So early in my career, I worked at a place called Pioneer Work and Learn, which is, I mean, sometimes you hear boot camp mentioned. They've kind of gotten rid of boot camp language, but these are either secure or staff secure treatment facilities where youth go and receive group individual therapy, can be for 6 months to a year, to try and work on treatment so that they can come back into the community and hopefully not commit crimes anymore. So residential treatment is kind of our last resort for youth. We try them on probation, we try diversion, depending on certain offenses or what they've done. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it when that decision is made. But many of these residential facilities have closed in the state of Michigan, so there's just not many beds available to send youth to.
So this placement is an effort to reduce recidivism rates. Is that?
Reduce recidivism, also to keep the community or youth safe. If we have someone that's committing crimes and is continuing to commit crimes, sometimes a place like that will prevent that, at least in the short term, physically prevent that, but hopefully, either get some maturity or get some therapy involved that will help reduce the desire to do so.
Maybe we can get an esports program going. I know someone who's interested in helping these youth out. Thank you.
Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Burrow. Andy and Tracy, thanks for being here today. We live in a country that has a system when people disagree that we have to have a judge and a courthouse and everything else that goes with it. And it basically at the root of it is you have two people that disagree. Sometimes they can come to an agreement where they may still disagree, and sometimes they don't, and the outcome isn't always positive. So I want to thank your staff and both of you for the work you do every day and the attempt to get the resolution as agreeable and peaceful as possible. So I want to thank you. It's a difficult job. We normally don't hear praises on our court system. There's all other departments that do that. The question I've got, though, is I want to circle back to the beginning of your comments. We had a huge backlog during COVID. Refresh my memory now. The courts were shut down for...
Effectively, they were shut down for anything in person. I mean, we pivoted quickly to do a lot of remote hearings. The backlog was most impacted in criminal cases and felony cases, though, because of the inability to do a trial. And what we've realized is that even the threat of the trial or a date certain of the trial will kind of push more towards the pleas being accepted and offered. That's kind of the last step. And when that last step was not there, We just found that that was not happening. So at least that's the theory at this point. But trials were the thing that we could not do during the pandemic. Other things, it was very challenging to do. There was a lot of, figuring out new ways to do things. But for the most part, we were able to pivot and do a lot of virtual hearings and move our other case types forward. Again, it took a while to get them going, but relatively quickly we were able to.
Okay, so then, I guess the meat of my question and a follow-up then is, so we've had a chance to look back of what happened, and I'm not going to get into the politics of what happened during COVID. But has there been talk with our court systems locally, the state, how we handled it, what we did? And something tells me that this won't be the first time that we're going to be facing something like this, and it may come sooner than later. Is there anything we learned or anything that we've talked about that, because the places that were open were deemed essential, but you had the grocery stores and that may have 500 to 1,000 people in their stores, and that was deemed, well, we can work with that. But with our courts, with, deputy officers, the defendant, the prosecutors, it would be easy to separate. I mean, is there any long-range looking back and forward of if this happens again, how can we keep you guys open? Because at the end of the day, that's a long wait for someone waiting for judgment on, may disagree with why he was arrested.
Yes, I agree, and I'm glad we're not getting into the politics of COVID. But we did a lot of lessons learned, that type of thing. I think that, at least in our state, I think that the criminal trial is going to be a hard one to improve upon because there's a lot of due process issues that many people in our state think that would not be met virtually. The rest, I think we could pivot relatively quickly. I mean, right now, we do a lot of things virtually. We kind of have a hybrid system right now. There are some issues where the judge says, no, we really need to bring this group in because we need the courtroom. I think based on the fact that we've learned, or what we have learned about COVID, I think that we could probably still make time to do that. It wouldn't have to be just a complete shutdown, but we could do it properly with enough planning, which we kind of figured out as we went before. So again, I hope we don't experience anything like that again. If we did, we're way better positioned to deal with it, at least in the form of a pandemic. I mean, if the electricity goes out too, then it's even more difficult. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your answer, because like I said, the two sides are very divided on that issue, and I want to thank the staff that's with you today, but I know there's a bunch of staff back in your office. Can you let them all know that, we appreciate what they do, and they're not front and center like you, but everyone knows they're there day to day.
Right,
So
absolutely.
thank you.
We got just under 400 complete staff at the court, and yes, they're all very, very important to what we do.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Baker.
Oh, thanks. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Bujak for that question. I was wondering if you were going to offer a room. But I was like, so what does this mean? Is this jail somewhere or something? But it's nice to hear that. These are two issues. So often when I'm in the community, when people ask me about the county-related issues, most of the things they ask me about is not related to the county. But Friends of the Court, Juvenile Detention Center come up often, and I really appreciate the metrics that you have for Friends of the Court, community outreach. I think that helps. Can you talk a little bit about just in general what's happening at the Juvenile Detention Center, a little more detail? Because I do hear about conditions there, staffing I know is an issue, the type of youth that are there, the type of crimes that they're engaged in. And so what are the challenges that we have that maybe the whole commission should consider as we think about how to better do the detention center?
Yeah, well, we have a 98-bed facility in detention that was built out a few years ago, up from 66. In 2020 and 2021, we basically had the capacity we had a kick-out list or priority release list at about 60 right? 60 was kind of our limit, because there are staffing ratios that have, basically, we cannot have more than 8 youth per 1 staff, is what licensing would prohibit. There are times when we have to put kids in their rooms for a period of time in order to meet that staffing criteria. They're in their rooms individually. We do room checks. It's not ideal. We don't like to do it, but if staff is low enough in order to keep everyone safe, that's what we have to do. And typically, we'll do that on a rotational basis. We had been up over 80 kids recently, around 90, and it's like everything. I mean, the more crowded it gets in there, the more likely there are to be altercations, the more staff we need. Right now, we're at a little under 80, and things get a lot more peaceful, and we have a lot more incidents when it's lower. So we're always working to find diversions to put them in detention. Detention is kind of the, typically the last resort for these kids. But again, right now, I mean, if these 31 that are awaiting residential treatment elsewhere, I mean, if they were out of the facility, staffing would not be an issue. It would be, but I'm not going to say easy, because it's always hard work, but it would be a much easier job than they have right now. And I guess with the job market as it is, it's a little more difficult to get people that want to be inside in a locked facility for 8 to 10 hours a day when you could be somewhere else working from home. So there's been a lot of factors that have gone into to the staffing issues that we've had. Our administration out there takes their role very seriously in protecting the kids and making sure that we're not doing any harm. And again, I think sometimes the rotational, where we have to put some kids in their rooms, is, like I said, it's not ideal. We'd like them to be able to move around the day room and do things, but in order to keep the community and the facility staff and youth safe, that's what needs to happen. So that's kind of our alternative if we're too short-staffed to actually maintain that 8-to-1 ratio.
So the 31 going to placement is a key issue. What about diversions? Can you explain what you mean by diversions?
Well, we have a lot of, when a petition comes to the court, our intake supervisor will basically look at that, and there are many programs that we have. And in consultation with the prosecutor's office, there are some offenses, a first-time offense that might be a little more minor. We might send them to a shoplifting program or a stop smoking program or different things like that. There's usually some sort of treatment we offer, but it doesn't mean you have to come before the judge and be put on formal probation and basically get a record at that point. We really try to reduce the amount of youth that have the stigma of a delinquency charge or a delinquency disposition. So those, I mean, there's, we have a lot of dispositional. We have our crisis intervention program, which is if there's just kind of a crisis going on in a family. It's kind of a short-term thing where they kind of map out some safety plans, figure out some issues that are going on, offer some treatment, and then, let them go without being lodged in detention or without a formal case. We have, but there's many to mention, and I'd be happy to kind of send you a listing, the whole board if interested, of some of the detention or the diversion programs that we offer.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. Thank you for these performance reports. It's really interesting, and I appreciate hearing the stories that go behind the graph presentation that we consider before you come here. With the front of the court, I was quite taken, with the progress you're making and not executing bench warrants in a negative type of way. And for newer members here, we had a friend of the court subcommittee a few years ago where this, was an issue, and this subcommittee worked with your department and has really, I think it has helped. It's one way in which we as a legislative committee, as a board of commissioners, have helped to advance policy and in the use of, being respectful of the people that we're serving, but yet getting justice for all, to use a somewhat trite phrase, but yet to achieve more justice. I really did appreciate the report on that. And as I think about the report we've just heard on juvenile justice, the detention facility is new, and I think it might have even opened during COVID. And I don't know if it's possible for us to get a closer look or to see, we've talked about this before, to see what it is. I mean, there probably will be some limitations because of the children who are there, the juveniles who are there. But it might be helpful for us to see it up close and personal in some way to appreciate what's being done there. I will note, too, that I've got a lot to say today. The Michigan Association of Counties met last week, and among their issue briefs, their first message to lawmakers is the Child Care Fund is crucial for counties to provide adequate care to court and foster system involved youth. And it goes on from there. So this is an issue statement that's supported by the 83 counties of the Michigan Association of Counties, and might tie into our own legislative platform as well, which probably needs updating. And so, I will note that as well. The one, we've also, last year we talked about the performance reports and possibly looking at how they can be better. And I love the dissertations that we hear. I love the stories, the putting people behind a graph. But the graphs themselves are often just showing us percentages. They don't include the numbers of people who are involved, the numbers of people who are involved behind these percentages of 91% of this goal met or 79% of that goal met. And I would like to see, I would like to revisit this a little bit and see if the written report that we receive ahead of time can't be a little bit more informative and tell a little bit of that story to us. And I think it's particularly important because this is the start of a fiscal year. This is the group that approves staff increases. And we don't approve staff increases on the basis of percentages met. We approve them on the basis of what is the need, how many people, how many staff, So I think that, that's another thing that we can look at. I'm looking at us right now. We have 25% of this calendar year yet to go, but we're at the start of the fiscal year. So we've got 100% of the fiscal year to work on these issues and to address them so these reports to us can become all that much better.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bujak.
Thank you, Chair Pearl. I wanted to echo Commissioner Hennessy's comment about getting an opportunity to visit this facility. I would like to sign up for a tour of the juvenile facility and get a firsthand look there myself to see. I mean, we could sit here and talk about it at a meeting, and for me, it's better to actually see what's going on there. So I'd appreciate a tour.
All right, Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, if Commissioner Bujak gets 2 questions, and I get 2 questions. No, I agree with this, and I also want to just say, I think that it's good for this commission and the public at large, the community at large. I mean, the Juvenile Detention Center, the youth that end up in the Juvenile Detention Center have often been failed long before they got to the Juvenile Detention Center. So I think it's a community-wide response, including the schools and community organizations, et cetera. So it's helpful for us to kind of think through the pathway that leads to and then from the juvenile detention center, not just simply what happens when they're there. So, but I would love to visit it as well and really get a sense of how in our heads we can appreciate and guide the community, not so much just pushing you all to do, to hire more people, but to really help out in the community. Thanks.
All right, any other commissioner? All right, well, thank you, Tracy and Andrew. Tracy, I was just commenting, and I go to Linda, I go, 60,000 calls, answering within 5 minutes. Are these folks only working Monday through Friday, or are they 24/7? And she said, no, they're only Monday through Friday. So, that's a lot of calls, that's a lot of answering, that's a lot of work, it's a lot of people try to keep happy. I guess I'm curious with both of you. It seems like you always have winners and losers, right? Unfortunately, in your line of business, right, people always think they won or they lost. Do you have surveys that show that, hey, folks really still appreciate the process? And again, there's some folks you're just going to get that bad survey on. However, what do those look like? If you give them, I'm assuming you probably do, but what do those look like?
Yeah, we do give surveys. We actually just completed our public satisfaction survey Friday of last week, where basically we did it two ways. We put a code on if they were doing remote hearings, and then we had hard copy surveys. So those will go to Lansing to come back, but it's typically a yearly thing. And it's always interesting. The court, when asked the public, or I guess ratings, so to speak, are much higher for people that actually come to the court than people that have not. I mean, the surveys are overwhelmingly positive. Like 80% or more say that they were treated fairly and with respect. And that's irrespective of whether they lost the case or not. I mean, what we've learned is as long as someone feels heard and given a fair shot, even if they lose, they still kind of come away feeling like, satisfied with what they've received. But I can show you our previous year's stuff, and then when this comes out, I'll be sure that that this board gets a copy.
Great, thank you. Tracy, kind of that same thing, I'm assuming?
Yeah, certainly we are underneath the umbrella of the circuit court, so that kind of applies to us. We do have some front of the court specific things we do to get feedback from parents as well. We have a survey, and it's on Access Kent, where parents can click and they can fill out the survey and provide us information. That survey is frequently also emailed out to parents who have had a recent service with our office, like a mediation service, for instance. And we also get feedback from those online appointments and those mediation services that we provide, where parents are invited to leave a review of that service and provide feedback after that service is completed.
Now, Tracy, I'm assuming, your office, or both of your offices for that matter, really you're a Monday through Friday operation, but what does it look like on a Saturday and Sunday as services perhaps are needed? Does that happen? How do you handle that? How do you do that? Is that something you can share with us?
Sure, I'll chime in a little bit there. One thing, and perhaps this is another COVID lesson that we've all learned, is having more avenues for parents to access, the better. So while we might not be responding or picking up those phone calls on a Saturday or a Sunday, there are avenues that parents can reach out. So whether it's through a two-way message, like, hey, I'm thinking about this right now, then we can follow up with that person right away on Monday morning. We have email addresses, different email addresses for them to reach different departments, so they can get responses early on in the week if something occurs to them over the weekend. So there are avenues for them to reach out. It might be Monday when the response comes through.
All right. Yeah, we're in this 24/7 now world, right? Don't respond, people get upset. So excellent. I really appreciate you both being here today. And again, thank you very much, and the great work yourselves and your staff do for this community. So it's appreciated.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item on our agenda from the administrator's office. Al.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners 4 different items that are all related. Appropriate a landowner donation of $94,000. Offer an option for the purchase of development rights on 167.76 acres in Tyrone Township as recommended by the Agricultural Preservation Board. Authorize the exercise of the option and purchase of the development rights. And authorize the county administrator, controller, or his designee to execute the options, purchase agreements, and any associated closing documents. Summary. The Board of Commissioners approved the purchase of development rights ordinance on November 26, 2002. Resolution 827-2070 appropriated 50% of matching funds from USDA, and Resolution 513-2142 appropriated 30% from the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, or MDARD. The Kreidoff families have agreed to donate $94,000, or 20% as match to the purchase price. The Agricultural Preservation Board recommends that an option for the purchase of development rights be issued to preserve approximately 167.76 acres in Tyrone Township on 3 parcels owned by Tim and Christine Kreidoff and one parcel owned by Colin and Hannah Krydoff at a cost not to exceed $470,000 based on the property's compliance with federal criteria, county criteria, and the availability of matching funds. The Agricultural Preservation Program has funds available to pay the option fees and closing costs. The option agreement has been reviewed by Corporate Counsel and approved as to form. Corporate Counsel will review and approve closing documents before the date of closing.
All right, thank you, Al. Commissioners, I'm looking for a motion and support. Do I have a motion by Bujak? I have support by Hennessy. Comments, questions, or concerns? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Burrow. I've got just some comments, then I've got a question for Matt or Mark. I don't know who's in charge of this. But looking at the proposal, I don't see it a lot where someone is going to take $94,000, which is a good chunk of money, to preserve something that's going to benefit people for here on out. And that's one of our most important thing is our food chain supply in this county. And I guess, so Matt, you know, my question to you now, the Krudoff Farm, is this part of a Centennial Farm that the grandparents owned?
Actually, yes. We've already preserved Tim Krudoff's parents' properties, too.
So, I mean, here's a farm. It's been in business for over 100 years. I can probably count on one hand that we ever had a fire truck or law enforcement or the road commission out to fix something. It's very inexpensive, you know, for a farm, for a county to, you know, maintain that. And I think that's, you know, it says a lot. I mean, how many jobs, how many tons of food has this farm created in that 100-year cycle is just remarkable. And I think far too often we just give a pass to the ag sector, the family farmers that have done so much to make this country great. So Matt, on a bigger sense though, my question though is, what are the strategies for helping protect farmland? You read the 100-plus page report, is that this goal, we wanted to protect all of the county, which just isn't possible. But one of the strategies out there that have been effective in a lot of other states is that either create a zone that's got a designation to it, or a zone where farmers can farm and not worry about anyone coming in that's living next door that's going to complain about their operations. I mean, when we build these industrial parks, I mean, we don't put a tool and die shop in the middle of a neighborhood and then another one on the other side of town. We try to group them together. And then when we group them together, government seems to be okay with, you know, we've got hundreds of thousands of dollars to help you build the infrastructure. You're going to be creating jobs. You're going to get millions from the state, millions from the MEDC if you do all these things. Is this a viable strategy? Because I looked at the map here, is that they're starting to get a group of farms together, and the goal is to cluster these into areas where they can do what they do best, and that's agriculture. Do you see that happening in this county? Can it happen? Is it successful other places? I know it's a long question.
That was, the biggest question I've ever had up here. And I will, at the very surface level, address as much as I can. So first off, you know, even our farmers know we're not going to preserve every acre. And expect, Tim Krudoff told me himself, you know, there is land that's probably better suited for growth in even Tyrone Township. And there's land also that's really good for dairy and corn and soybean and other ancillary products they grow. So yeah, there's no intention, I think, of anyone to preserve everything that there's space for. Our Realtor Alliance was very pleased to hear that, and they liked seeing the cluster map. So I think that is a viable strategy on so many fronts. I think not just from an environment or agriculture perspective, but also from a development perspective. Having the bucolic hills we have here, the Upick Farm, something that draws people to move here. So we have to find that balance between what's good for development to keep their numbers and what's good for farms to keep their numbers. As you pointed out, there has been a tremendous amount of economic benefits for every farm. You know, we don't take a lot in services. We give more back to the economy than we take in through the service provided. So from a fiscal point of view, it's viable. It does take a concerted effort to create that threshold of businesses. There was that goal stated of having a minimum of 25,000 acres. We are marching to it, but our pace is slower than was designated by the Board of Commissioners years ago. So that may take revision to figure out what other strategies there are. You talked about what the land privatization strategies are in general. And there are some that are appropriate for the county, others appropriate for the township, such as zoning. And we do try and encourage our townships to maintain fidelity to the zoning plan and future land use maps that they put out every so often. But that does change, and we've seen it change in all of our agricultural townships. You know, we wouldn't have the problem of preservation if ag preservation districts were respected and could be upheld. But recognize that people want to grow, and all of those ag districts do accommodate a certain amount of low-density residential use, which can creep and creep and creep. And so the state has a power to, with PA 116, to sort of through tax deferrals, incentivize landowners to not sell to development. This land reservation program is sort of the next step in that. So that you can enter a temporary program and then wait for the permanent preservation. Our clusters are in 3 major areas: the north area of the county, the West Fruit Ridge, and the East Parnell Corridor. And through that, sort of a concentric ring of preservation of farmland is starting to form. It's got a long way to go until it's sort of at a level you might see in either out east in Pennsylvania or even in Washington County through their extensive green use, open space, and farmland preservation. But it's something that I think is obtainable here. And it may take a regional approach to do as well with Ottawa County, Ionia County, and maybe even Montcalm to really buffer that out so that the growth that's natural for this region can be accommodated, but the space we need for food, fiber, and fuel can also be accommodated.
All right. Commissioner DeBoer.
Thank you, Chair. I very much support land preservation. I do not necessarily support the government's job or role, the county's role necessarily, in preserving the land with taxpayer funds. And I'm inclined to move a division of the question, but I don't think the outcome would be any different. So I do want to say there are parts of this that I do support, but I will be voting no because I don't support all of it.
All right. Commissioner Bourget.
Thank you, Chair Burrow. Matt, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to take a farmland preservation tour last month. Denny Heffron, our host, actually seeing the land that has been preserved, I think a benefit to myself as a commissioner to see the physical land. And, you know, this 100 acres, I wish it was 1,000, you know. Like you said, we can't preserve it all, but I'd like to see a more regional approach, as you had mentioned, looking at Ottawa County and Ionia County. And maybe we could, you know, develop a larger strategy. But certainly, our program was a goal. We said 25,000 acres. You know, we're very slowly moving towards that. And I just appreciate that we have that opportunity and that you are, you know, doing your best to try to promote that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you. Agricultural preservation, and looking at the map here with the different properties, it certainly, and as you've talked about, it certainly relates to land use. And as this county grows, how we use the land and how we plan for it with our townships and villages is really going to be really very, very important. And we had a report given to us a few years ago, not too many years ago. It was called By Choice or By Chance. And I'm glad for this proposal here because it does give us a choice, that we're just not letting it go to chance. And for that reason, I do support our agricultural preservation program as a way in which we can guide, direct, make a choice on the use of the land. Counties cannot directly do the planning, and so this is one of the ways in which we can be involved and can make a difference.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioner comment? All right, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. No. All right, that has passed. Next item on our agenda is from the administrator's office.
Yes. And let me get there. Okay. Oof. Sorry about that.
They're fine.
I should have been teeing that up just now.
What do you want this?
No, I need to. Is that it? Okay. Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the appointment of Torrance Richardson as the joint representative on the City-County Building Authority to fill the remainder of the current term expiring December 31, 2023, and the next four-year term beginning January 1, 2024, and ending December 31, 2027. Summary. A vacancy occurred on the City-County Building Authority. A joint nomination, as required, was agreed upon by the County Administrator Controller and the City Manager for the City of Grand Rapids, and we also discussed that with the Mayor of Grand Rapids and the Board Chair of the Kent County Board of Commissioners. It is recommended that the Board of Commissioners appoint Torrance Richardson for a four-year term expiring December 31, 2027, and the remainder of the current term expiring December 31, 2023.
All right, do I have a motion? Motion by Teal, supported by Baker. All right, any comments or questions? Commissioner Hennessy.
I would just like to get a little bit of a primer or refresher on what this particular building authority does and who are the members of it and how they are chosen. Obviously, this is a cooperative type of choice, and the balance of interests or experiences, maybe it's a better way to put it, that of the members who are on it.
Sure. The current membership includes myself, and it's been long-term practice, at least 30 years, to have the county administrator represent Kent County on the Building Authority. Eric DeLong represents the City of Grand Rapids on the Building Authority, and Emily Bridson was the third member, and she resigned and moved out of state. And so that created this vacancy. I think both the city and county were interested in having somebody neutral, but everyone agreed that Torrance would be a great choice because of his massive experience with building right now. They're doing a lot of that, and the purpose of the City-County Building Authority, if you look at the law that it was created under, was intended to be the group that could do, kind of be the bonding agent for big public projects. For example, the DeVos Place bonds, roughly $95 million in bonds that were sold to fund DeVos Place, even though they were issued under the county's credit rating, they were issued through the City-County Building Authority. And so that allowed that group to, through city staff, to provide fiduciary services for the bonds. And so that's a primary role. Also, there's oversight of the capital needs of the city-county facility in Calder Plaza. Those are some of the other things the board would look at. Building authorities, unless you have a lot going on that they're responsible for, might meet quarterly, might meet monthly. This group, I think we meet twice a year right now, so we don't have a huge amount of current projects or anything like that. But it's the kind of group that could be called upon if either the city or the county were to issue bonds through that mechanism for a project.
All right. You're good. Commissioner Diaz.
Just a quick point. I think it's been mentioned in a prior meeting, but I think it'd be helpful for the committee to have essentially what Al just explained when we do these final appointments. Definitely wanting to, I know there's multi-steps that these appointments go through, and we're kind of the last box that's checked, rather. But just so that we're a little bit more informed, we're making these final decisions. I'd appreciate that information in the packet.
Great,
Thank you.
Commissioner Al.
Point well taken, and I would do a memo next time, but I should say this didn't go through the normal process because we have two governments coming together on one appointment. The city has a process, the county has a process, so it was more of a process of coming to an agreement on that third neutral member than a typical process for many of the appointments you make would go through.
All right. All right, so we have a motion, we have support. Any other comments? If not, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. That Tory has been approved. All right, last item on our agenda that needs some action. Brought to us by the Health Department.
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to add 2 full-time public health educator positions and 1 full-time sanitarian position. Summary, the Health Department has been awarded $1,081,160 in funding from the Ready by 5 millage funds to support the lead investigation work currently being done in the homes of children found to have elevated blood lead levels. Of the total award, $582,750 has already been appropriated to the 2024 Health Fund budget. This request is to add 2 full-time health educator positions and 1 full-time sanitarian position with the additional $498,410 in funding. The lead sanitarians conduct risk assessments and lead investigations to referrals received from internal sources as well as community partners. The addition of a full-time sanitarian will support the estimated 25% increase in the number of referrals received and provide greater support to areas outside of the urban center. The 2 full-time health educator positions will work with community partners to build and implement a countywide health education strategy to reduce exposure to lead. The grant funds will support the addition of 2 full-time public health educator positions and 1 full-time sanitarian position with salary and fringe costs of $89,511 each. Funds will also support increased supervisor time, clerical time, supplies, contractual services, promotional materials, vehicle expenses, computer and software needs, and indirect costs. The grant period is October 1, 2023 to September 30, 2024. If funding is eliminated or decreased, the positions will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to the fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations.
All right, nice job, Al. Do we have a motion and support? Motion by Teal, supported by Baker. Commissioner Hennessy. Oh, you're just. All right, I was just trying to be efficient. I'm like, hey, look at us.
I know, I think this is really good. This is a good use of our money. And again, I keep referring back to how we used to do things. It was a lead task force that has continued in its diligence and continued to seek the funds, continued to support the elimination of lead in and around our older homes. And I think this is all very, very good, and I think we do have representatives of the Health Department here today, you know, to talk about it if we need them to. But this is really a very good program for the health of our youngest members of this community and a good use of the millage money and the other support from sources it gets.
Great. Commissioner Diaz.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to state that I represent a section of the 49507 zip code, which I was saddened to find out has some of the highest rates of people, kids that have lead in their blood. And so I'm very much grateful that we're doing the work that has to be done to alleviate that. I'd like to get a broader, I don't know if it would be probably more appropriate for a later time, a broader idea of how much this is going to help, because my understanding is that there's, again, a lot of work that has to be done. And so it'd be interesting to see like how much this is going to help again, where are we at with the process, how many homes have to be remediated. I'm grateful to the state for recently passing legislation that requires lead testing for all kids, newborns 2 years old, and hopefully as we start receiving more data, we can get a better understanding of the state of lead poisoning that's happening in our county. So thank you.
Well, we do have our health director here, so if there's anything that you would like him to respond to, or if you think that's a question you'd like him to maybe answer, we have him here, so if that's something.
Probably more appropriate for a later time, where the full board can be informed, but I'll leave that out there for now.
Right, great. Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, I represent the rest of the 49507, and it's a huge issue. It came up a lot in my campaign. And I know that other parts of the county have this concern as well. from also being on the Grand Rapids School Board, the impact of lead poisoning was pretty severe in our schools, and so really supported. This was one of the things I spent a lot of time talking about when I was running for this office, and one of the first conversations I had with Administrator Vandenberg was about this issue, and I know that he has put in a lot of work with this, not just locally, but also at the state level, and so I'm really pleased that we're trying to tackle this from all the different angles possible, so.
You bet. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioner comments, questions? If not, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, please say no. It has passed. All right, miscellaneous. Commissioner Hennessy.
First of all, I'm going to say that several of us, Commissioner Bujak, Commissioner Sparks, our administrator, myself, attended the Michigan Association of Counties meetings last week in Kalamazoo, and it was led by our now outgoing president, Stan Ponstein, and he did an excellent job over the last year as president, and always, you know, of course, being from this commission, he keeps the interests of Kent County in mind, along with those of the other 82 counties. And he really made it last year when he took over the office. He gave a wonderful little slide presentation on how he had visited, and I know he has probably at this point visited all 83 of the counties during his term of office. And the incoming president is also from the west side of the state, from Allegan County, so Jim Story. So it's interesting that we have such a presence at the Michigan Association of Counties. I really do encourage, you know, other people to go there because it was really very informative. And they have their legislative platform, and that was passed with only one of them eliciting some real discussion, seeking some revisions as legislation passes through the state. And one of the things that was reported on is that our state legislature for this year's term, for what they're doing this year, may be adjourning early. And I'm real curious. We haven't heard from our lobbyists in a while in terms of, you know, what does she expect the legislature to take up during these final weeks of this year? When does she, you know, expect that the session for this year will end? What can we do in the meantime? And then to start thinking again about what we want our legislative platform to be. There were 4 resolutions passed by MAC last week, and how do our needs fit into those that are delineated by this statewide association? So I think there's a lot that we have to do. Like I said, we're at the start. We've got 100% of the fiscal year yet ahead of us, and I think that there's a lot that we can do as a legislative committee.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, I think we had Becky our first quarter at one of our meetings or on Zoom. So I'm sure that's something that we can get here sooner rather than later. So we'll try to coordinate that.
One other thing that we've done in the past, as you know, I mean, we're past a lot of the ARPA and the funds like this, but as we get into more business as usual type of thing, another thing that we could do is to have meetings with our legislators, to have breakfast meetings and updates and hearing their perspectives as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other? Commissioner Bujak.
Thank you, Chair Burrow. I would like to echo Commissioner Hennessy's comment about our Commissioner, Stan Ponstein, and his leadership at the Michigan Association of Counties. Stan's not one to beat his own drum and look for accolades, but certainly his leadership much appreciated. And having been a part of the Michigan Association of Counties now for 9 months and seeing the great work that Stan's done, I really think that we should, recognize the good work that he's done there. And he certainly handed off the presidency of the Michigan Association of Counties to another good servant of the state. And I think the Michigan Association of Counties has been well served by Stan and will continue. And I'm looking forward to future events. Thanks.
Well, he has set the bar high with trying to visit every county for the incoming president. So let's see if that incoming president can hold up to Commissioner Ponstein's standards there. So, any other comments or questions? Commissioner Diaz?
Yeah, just quickly, I'd like to echo Commissioner Hennessy's comments on trying to see if we could have our lobbyists both at the federal level and the state level showing or coming before us a little bit more often. As was mentioned a couple of meetings back, it was a little bit worrying there what Al had to say around if we potentially had a shutdown and how that would impact the county. And we're probably going to be right back in that situation in a couple of weeks here. And so it'd be interesting to see how we can try and ask our legislators to get it together and not put us in that situation at the federal level. And when it comes to the state level, I know that there are often times where our colleagues and I don't see eye to eye on things, but I think one of the things that we do agree on is the importance of local control. And as there's potential legislation coming through the legislature that will essentially give more local control to local governments, it'd be interesting to see what this committee can agree on and what potentially may or may not need to be done, and how we can make sure that our legislators, especially the 5-6 legislators that represent Kent County, so that we can share our thoughts and viewpoints with them. So,
All right,
thank
great.
you.
The devil is in the details, for sure. I was at a meeting yesterday where some of those items were discussed, and they do have some major impacts on city and county governments, and something that we have to be aware of and definitely watch out and make sure we are being represented either for or against some of those bills. So, thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Baker.
Real quick, just a reminder, invite people here today. The sheriff is performing live tonight on Madison Street Southeast, Community Forum on getting to know the sheriff's office. So the NAACP offices on Madison Southeast.
Did you say performing live, the sheriff is today? Okay, that's what I
Well, I mean,
thought I heard.
Speaking.
Oh,
She's not
speaking
doing
live.
what she would normally do, Sheriff.
I heard performing, so I was like, all right. We're gonna have a full board there tonight. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioner comments or questions? Commissioner Hennessy.
Perhaps we can talk further about the minutes and how they might at least reflect that we have discussion on these issues. We've met for an hour and a half now, and so we really have talked about a number of things this morning, and perhaps we can work out how the minutes might at least reflect that we do have these discussions.
Right, except maybe the sheriff performing tonight, so
Well-
skip some of those minutes.
Well, if I can mention one more thing that I learned at the conference last week is that there is a Walk a Mile Mentoring for Success program through the Michigan Department of Corrections, where they have a mentoring program where you put ex-felons with people who are getting out of long incarceration situations. And we heard after the program was over that they're coming quickly to Kent County, that they'll be here in a few weeks and setting up this program here. And so this is the kind of thing that you learn when you go to conferences. I wish more of us would go. It really was good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Commissioner. All right, seeing no other commissioner comments, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.